Are we live yet? We are live. Debbie, roll call, please.
Councilmember Stacy Green.
Present.
Councilmember Kim Wayne is absent, asked to be excused. Councilmember Bob Hall.
Here.
Here.
And I am here. Can I get a motion to excuse Kim if possible?
I will make a motion to excuse Kim Green.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ceremonial agenda. We don't have any, do we? Okay. Non-agenda public comment period. Now is the time that the council sets aside for public comment for items that are in our purview, but we cannot take action upon any of these items. I'm going to take the liberty of establishing a 3-minute comment period for everybody here that's not related to the particular agenda, just in case it starts running overly long. So comments, please. One by one. We got plenty of time for everybody. Name and address, please.
Daniel Walker, 1804 North Old Stage Road, Mount Shasta.
Okay.
My name is Charnel James. I am with Greenwise Consulting, and I represent Mr. Walker. And just as a point of introduction, I actually grew up in Big Springs, and this is a neighborhood for me. I work in the cannabis industry, and I am a consultant in the cannabis industry, and I represent Mr. Walker and the business that he owns, which is called Tellus Genetics. It's a nursery that we are trying to establish here within the city of Weed. I've prepared a letter for you as a letter of introduction so that you get a chance to meet Mr. Walker through paper, and some information about nurseries and the importance of where they are in the supply chain in order to supply plants to people that want to either cultivate for themselves or for studies and genetic reasons. Tellus Genetics is actually located a building here in town, right downtown, across the street from existing licensed dispensaries, and in close proximity to the cannabis businesses that are open there. We understand that the current ordinance that you have doesn't address nurseries, and that you are taking under consideration a cultivation ordinance. However, neither of those address a nursery. A nursery is a good business to have and to handle as a development agreement, because you don't need a lot of nurseries in order to supply your supply chain. Nurseries provide clones and seedlings, and they perform necessary work to research and create new strains that help patients. With a building located downtown, it can create many opportunities for the local businesses. The building that we're looking at, which is the Florista building, will be a perfect lab space to have clean lab on the second floor and a showroom lab on the bottom floor that can be used to support the existing cannabis businesses downtown. It can be used for educational purposes, which is the very most important part of having a showroom floor. On the showroom floor, no sales will ever be conducted, as clones are only sold through dispensaries. Instead, it'll be an opportunity for people that desire to grow for themselves to see the infant plants, learn about cultivation practices, and from our master grower that's on staff, and to allow customers of the local dispensaries to see where their plants are being grown, and special orders can be handled there and fulfilled through the local dispensaries. What we're asking is that you direct staff to allow us to work with them to submit a development agreement to allow the nursery to be operated in downtown, and to take into consideration a chance to have this business operate and benefit the city. Under a development agreement, there are many opportunities that we can provide for the city, including unique fees that can be paid and support that can be provided to your local businesses that you've already approved. At this time, we ask that you allow us to be on a further agenda, hopefully the next city council agenda or a special meeting, and direct staff to work with us to allow us to submit our proposal and the development agreement and take it under consideration. I've provided, like I said, a letter that does an introduction and 2 different documents. One of them is an article about Dark Heart, which is the leading nursery and a nursery that we have connections with. Thank you. And the second one is an article about the necessity of nurseries within the chain of supply. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
presentation, and all of your information is here? All right, thank you.
But we have information for people in the audience.
Yes.
My
Hi.
name is Chris Weaver. My address is 6050 Aaron Court in Weed. And I'm here because my husband and I own the old bakery building on Main Street. And
Yes.
above the bakery, as you may or may not realize, there's an apartment. And typically, we have been leasing that apartment to kids that go to COS. The last 4, 5, 6 years, those tenants have been young ladies, usually freshmen at COS. And there is a parking issue for the apartment. The apartment is entered off of the alley behind the apartment. Behind the bakery. And the building is, as you know, right next to Papa's Bar. The parking lot behind the bakery is a city-owned parking lot, which currently has no overnight parking designation. And I'm here to ask for your consideration to issue parking permits of some sort for the tenants of the building. They can be short-term, perhaps maybe a year, parking for a year, or the term of the school year or whatever. Sometimes, it's a 3-bedroom apartment, it's about 1,200 square feet. Sometimes all 3 of the kids have cars, sometimes, as in this year, only one of the kids has a car. But it's much, much safer for them to park in the lot behind the building and go right into their apartment than it is to try and find parking on Main Street and have to come all the way around to the back entrance of the building. And I'm happy to pay for the parking permits. I'm not expecting to get something for free. And I understand the reasoning behind your no overnight parking there. I'm not necessarily trying to buck that reasoning. It's valid. I'm just asking for perhaps consideration of an exception in this case for the kids that live there. Some sort of a permit that they can hang in the, window of the car so that their cars can easily be identified.
Question, is there any parking currently? I thought there was parking behind the building already, no?
No, that's the building next to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a look. We can't take any action, but
No, I know.
we can have Martin take a look and see what staff might recommend.
Okay, that would
There are
be
certain
appreciated.
reasons, like you understand why we don't do it overnight.
Yes,
so, okay.
absolutely, I do.
We'll see what we can do.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening. Some of you may recognize me as I've assisted you with your candidacy filing paperwork at the county clerk's office, but I wanted to take a few minutes of your time to introduce myself. My name is Laura Bynum, and I'm going to be a candidate for the county clerk's position in the June primary election. As you probably have heard, the incumbent Colleen Setzer is retiring at the end of her current term, so I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for me to advance my career. So I began my employment in the county clerk's office in 1999 as the board clerk to the Board of Supervisors and served in that position until 2003 when I was appointed to the assistant county clerk. So I've served in that position since almost 15 years now, and I think that the greatest gift that I could bring to the citizens of Siskiyou County would be continuity. I've worked in that department almost 20 years. I know the job. I know what it entails. I can hit the ground running. So I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time this evening to introduce myself to you and see if you have any questions.
None, but good luck.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, that's the
yes.
first time for us. So.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you for your time tonight.
All right.
Hi, I'm Eric Ziller. I'm from Hammond Ranch. I'm becoming a kind of a regular here. I'd like to start by sharing that I enjoy good irony, and I hope you will too. This is the sign on Vista Drive at the location where they're talking about putting up the Love's Truck Stop. And it says residential area, no trucks. It doesn't say residential area, 600 trucks a day. It doesn't say residential area, 97 trucks a night. Again, there's a lot of us that live out in this area, and we believe in this. I want to state that I'm in favor of the Love's truck stop, but I'd like to see it on the east side where all of the infrastructure is already in place, where a lot of the environmental studies have already been done. I believe that putting it over there, it could be up and running in half the time that it would take to get it started on the west side, which would bring profit to the Love's Company and revenues to the city in a much quicker format. What I'm essentially here for tonight is I'd like to request that the council create an agenda item about this Love Truck Stop so that we can start to have a dialogue on this issue. I think there's a lot of things that we agree on, and the things that we disagree on, let's get them out there. Let's try to find some solutions to these. So basically, I'm here tonight to ask that one of the council people make a motion to create an agenda item about the Love's Truck Stop so we can start this dialogue going. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anybody ready yet? We will get there, but not yet. So anyway, next.
Sort of on the same subject. You don't mind if I read it, so I don't stay within
That's fine.
time. My name's Neil Hyman. I live at 1616 Maple Drive, and I attended your general plan meeting, I think it was a couple months ago, and I found myself at odds with several things that the city manager said. Now that the attorney has corrected one of them, and I'll be able to speak freely about them. I actually am quite familiar with general plan and land use issues because I was active in local politics down in Morgan Hill for a number of years, including 2 terms as mayor. At that time, Morgan Hill was under a state-imposed moratorium requiring us to develop a new plan, general plan from scratch. The first point, and with which I disagree with the city manager, was about your ability to reject projects. Because Morgan Hill completely scrapped the old plan, we ended up canceling several approved projects, including some which the owners had already floated assessment district bonds and put in significant infrastructure. Naturally, we got sued, but where we were upheld at the appellate court because the Supreme Court long ago had said, and this is an approximate quote, "No development rights vest until a foundation is laid in reliance upon a valid building permit." While you should give serious consideration to any landowner who acts in good faith, your sole responsibility is to make a planning decision that best benefits the city. And then when it comes to property rights, how equitable is it to increase the value of Love's property when it's significantly decreasing the value of property surrounding it? On the next point, you talked about an expanded park which was dropped from the general plan because nothing had been done to develop the existing parkland. Well, the general plan is not just a land use map. There are other things in there like stated goals and objectives, which describe the steps to be taken to achieve your goals. So this says to me that the city did little or nothing to implement the park goal. I'm not going to brag, but Morgan Hill did a lot of things to implement its general plan. It got grants, it did tax increment financing, we required financial impact analysis, and like most cities, we set up separate capital mitigation fees. And appropriate development will pay for your general fund revenues that it adds to the community, but it incrementally adds to your future capital requirements, like additional patrol car someday and a fire truck and a park and wells and sewers. And I was surprised to find that Weed does not even have capital mitigation fees. I recommend them highly, as I can tell you horror stories that resulted from cities not having such fees. If Weed had a reasonable capital mitigation structure, Pilot, Grockout, and Starbucks alone would have paid for phase 1 of the park development and probably help offset the cost of a fire truck. Finally, with respect to Love's, which the other gentleman brought up, I'm sure you'll hear from others the many problems with this proposal. The point I'd make about Love's is that in that location, it will cancel any hope for developing the other uses you've envisioned in your general plan. But if you want it at all, with him, put it on the other side. You'll still get the revenue, the sales tax subventions, but you will not destroy your general plan. And finally, the other thing I was going to say is it appears to me that the Stop Love's Truck Stop group is gaining a lot of support around here. So I'd advise you to get definitive advice from your attorney with respect, because I suspect the legal challenges are going to rival those of Crystal Geyser and your current water situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Striegel, 2601 North Old Stage Road. Wish you guys a belated happy Groundhog's Day. I don't know, I don't know why that's on the calendar. But Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, a city that maybe 1 in 100 Americans know how to spell, is about the size of Weed, California. And once a year, they pull this overfed rodent out of a cage to look for his shadow. It brings into the town $5 million in revenue in restaurants, hotels, and everything. And news crews from all around the world come, and it's the big to-do. 20 to 25,000 people come. If Punxsutawney can have an overstuffed rodent looking at his shadow, I propose that Weed, California, have its own mascot. I'm proposing Toki the bear. And on 420, no, seriously, this is, because anytime Weed is mentioned, Weed, California is mentioned in any national broadcast or publication, it gets press, just because of our town's unusual name. So now that we have a legal industry, we need a pet spokesperson. And I think if Toki comes out of his van, rubs his eyes, looks for his shadow, after he sees it, if he sees a shadow, winter's over. If he doesn't see a shadow, winter's over. Either way, party's on. The bands could fire up at the theater and in our new little park in Heritage Plaza, and we could have a nice street party on 420. If we could do 1/10 of the revenue they do in Punxsutawney, we'd be doing great. That's one. Number two, we've got some of you have visited the new dispensary in town. Elizabeth has put lots of money, done a very tasteful project there. She has abided by the council's request not to glorify the cannabis end of it, but it's an alternative wellness clinic. And you guys I know some of you want to say, let's wait on recreational, see how she does. That kind of reasoning is like throwing her in the ocean with handcuffs. Let's see how she swims. She's turning away business every day, hundreds if not thousands of dollars of revenue, which over a course of a year can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I ask that you have your staff write up the recreational part of the law and have that up for a vote at our first reading at the next meeting. Finally, I have 30 seconds left. For 3 years, I've been writing to Tesla Motor Corporation to try and get them to put a supercharger station in Weed. A couple weeks ago, I got a message from them. They've approved it. On the 2 parking lots on either side of an Asian American barbecue. We forwarded the information to Ron. Ron contacted the property owner, who's agreeable to leasing it to Tesla. This could bring dozens of cars every day with money in their pockets, charge their cars, eat at our restaurant, shop at our gift shops. And Ron may be able to do an update as far as where it stands now, but I think someone else from Tesla has contacted him and said that the wheels are in motion, but this is a great get for the city of Weed, and Tesla would be a really good neighbor and project for our town. That's all I got in 3 minutes. Thanks.
Love your enthusiasm.
Thank you, Jim.
Please, no caffeine, please.
Hi.
Name and address. Holly.
211 Pine Street and 334 East Lake Street.
Full
And
name.
this is Holly Ann Hansard.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wrote a letter to the city administrator earlier today. I wasn't able to meet with him, but I received, and many of us with corrugated metal fences that have been prohibited with your ordinance. We were given 90 days. My letter was dated November 7th, and that is tomorrow. I don't understand the full meaning or ramifications of what that 90 days entails of when I must finish my fence or else. So I'm asking for more time because I believe that I know you can't act on it tonight because it's reasonable. 90 days might be reasonable for someone else, but it's not reasonable for me. And as people in the neighborhood could see, I am working very hard, and I am trying to do where I can with, cedar fencing painted red, which is not cheap, that when the Opportunity Center has more, I'll be able to buy more. So anyway, maybe, okay. But, and then the other thing is that that's one item, and I just need more time. So Ron said he'd get back to me on Monday, so I don't know. I need to find out maybe another agenda on this issue of the fencing is due. I mean, another city council thing. So also, prior to the expiration of the Bulls Fire streamlining in September of 2017, I requested a hearing before the city council, and for some reason it didn't get on the agenda. And there's at least 3 of us who are Bulls Fire victims who have not been able to rebuild, who still want to rebuild, who are hardship cases, who could still benefit from this. So perhaps next month, again, Ron may speak with you, and he'll get back to me hopefully on Monday. Perhaps on the next city council member, we can discuss this if you guys would be kind enough to extend that yet another year. He did it for 3 years in a row. And it was streamlining. There might be another formal name than that, but maybe Stacy, maybe one of the council members here is familiar with that. For hardship cases where we can have exemptions. We may not want the exemption, but so we could have it, and it was to help people to be able to rebuild. And not all of us fell under the umbrella of Habitat or what have you, and we didn't have insurance, and it is a hardship that we need. So that's what I want to share with you. So if you could perhaps motion, if you're willing, I know you can't take action on it, but before the end of the day, or so that we could have that at least discussed on the next city council meeting, or sometime in the near, ish future. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
And I noticed that the new shop in town has corrugated tin, and it's vertical, which the city council said, ooh, we'd like it vertical, not horizontal. But my fence, I believe, is beautiful, and I like it horizontal. So isn't that irony? So thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you, Holly. Any more?
Howdy, neighbors. I'm Ken Nelson. You know why I'm probably standing here. I'm on Oak Ridge. I've had a house there since 1978 that I built with my 2 hands. I'm 1.5 miles away from the west side of South Weed. I've been getting a lot of education, even just recently. I'm not sure, I guess we're kind of being steered by Loves to the west side, and I guess you guys are in a spot. But I sure wish they could be persuaded to go to the east side. That's all I can say about that. Driving here down Sugar Pine, I passed 3 homeless people with their packs looking for a place to park, build a fire, and hang out on the west side. So we on the west side are terrified. At the very least, I wish we could find a way to put a fire station in South Weed. That's my bottom line. It'd just be nice to have a fire engine really close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
I'll let it go. Any more? Okay, Andy. Name and address, and I know your name, but
I am Andy Fuso, and I'm on Blue Jay Lane in Hammond Ranch as well. And I'm here, I am on the board of the Mount Shasta Bioregional Ecology Center, which is an environmental group that's been in Siskiyou County for a number of years. And I wanted to just say we're dedicated to preserving the forests and water and the wildlife. No one's really, as of yet, asked us to preserve Toki the bear, but we're here to try to do something positive for the community. So I wanted to first thank City Manager Stock for myself and Dr. Ariel Halprin, who's our Senior Program Director, recently had the opportunity to meet with City Manager Stock to have a wide-ranging discussion. It started when we were asked to endorse the bioswale project at South Weed, and we were hesitant to do that because of the Love's Truck Stop issue and the fact that there was a lot of community opposition, as you've seen, to that. But I do want to appreciate the opportunity that we had to have a good and frank and wide-ranging discussion with the city manager. We came to areas where we agreed and areas where we disagreed. And so I've got a little bit of an email exchange that I'd like to give to you to make sure you all have seen it and have chance to look at it. So I'm really, you know, in addition to echoing everything that everyone said on the Love's Truck Stop, and we're going to try and be a positive force to help you as you consider this issue, and we'll be talking to you again when you have a discretionary action to perform on that matter. I do want to say a little bit about economic development, and one thing I just want to make sure the council knows is that we're not the people who say no. We're not the people that would like to stop all development. We'd like to have the city of Weed, which has had its economic challenges, be able to have a thriving and sustainable economy. And we, in our discussion in my letter, I have a number of possible areas that we'd like to assist with. Dr. Halprin is currently exploring grant opportunities for ecosystem restoration projects that we may be back before you to see if we can partner with you on some grants to help clean up the forest and have this be a viable source of economic activity. And again, we're not going to be liking the Love's Truck Stop, but we'd like to be a positive partner with the city and with everyone else in restoring our environment. So that's about all I have to say.
I
Thanks,
like
Andy.
that direction. Thank
Yeah.
you, Andy.
My name is Ann Johnson. I live at 6905 Linville Drive in Weed. I'm very close to the proposed Love's Truck Stop, and I just wanted to say that I am really encouraging the city to do whatever it can to get the truck stop on the east side of the freeway. It's going to really add a lot of light pollution, noise pollution, and I'm very close to the proposed site. And I would really appreciate your trying to work with them to get it into a place where it doesn't affect so much of the residential area. And perhaps, as Eric said, to get it on the agenda so that more of the community can come and talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Taylor, 810 Hillside Drive in Weed. As a member of the Weed 9 group, exonerated from the SLAP suit and the Roseburg Forest products, I would like to remind the council that we are still an active support group for you. Please be diligent on the quest for our Bahan Springs water. We urge you to keep up the fight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I guess I should let you say that. I'm thanking people.
That's fine. I would hog the microphone. Any more comments? Okay. With that end, what I will do is I will go to council member announcements, meetings, reports, comments, and we'll start off with Stacy.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a conversation with a constituent who was asking about parking, speed limits on the main street going towards the school of railroad tracks. I contacted the department heads, chief has gotten back to us, and they're doing some studies to look at if there's any speed controls, but we encourage anyone, if you see something in the city for a speed something, notify the police so they can check and just make sure if there's a pattern or take care of the people that are maybe offending. But we want to make sure the city's a safe place for all of us. So I thought that was a good follow-up. And we talked about it a few years ago. I remember when we did some parking or some street signs. Director of Public Works, Craig, will remember. We did some street signs for the city and for the parks.
Yeah.
And so it's a good question. So I appreciate the follow-up. So that should be coming up soon.
Okay, thanks.
For where, Stacy?
Main Street by the Merc.
Oh, okay.
They said they witnessed kids being there and youth and not being safe travel, and there has been no calls made. So the police are monitoring that to see if that's the case.
That's a good one. Sue?
I don't have anything.
Bob?
Mr. Mayor, I think main thing I have is that we had on the 22nd of January, that was the date that was used for a count for the homeless. We were talking about homeless. people. And what we did is on the 17th, we had what we called soup and socks. We provided hot soup and gave the participants actually 2 pair of socks and a stocking cap and toiletries and nutrition bars. And what we did is trying to make contact on the 17th. On the 23rd, we did this again. The question then was, where did you sleep on the night of the 22nd? And this was done in 7 counties in Northern California at the same time. What we're trying to do is trying to get a number. Right now, HUD has, for Siskiyou County, has 0 homeless people. So there's 0 funding for homeless. The programs are very faith-based and very limited, what we do have in Siskiyou County. So these numbers are going to be used and brought into a database, and we will be doing this again probably next year as far as the coalition goes, but there is quite a bit of talk about maybe this summer doing one so we know how much it varies in our area to get some numbers. And the idea is to form a program, that we can say as a community that's what we're doing. And at the same time, it's not to invite homeless people to our area. We will still be enforcing the ordinances that we have as far as overnight camping. And I think one thing that it has developed through this is this understanding that all the communities in Siskiyou County have to enforce, for this to work, have to enforce their ordinances with equal vigor, yes. So, but the big thing there is this is the first time that the counties ever come together to talk about it together, that we are working together on this. And for us to be part of this seven county process is even more powerful because we are dealing with politics. And the more, when we can work together, we can get something done. So it was very, we had actually 11 people from, I don't have my list with me, but 11 people helped on with our count in our lunch, and we had some donations from people that I will put in the paper. I'm sorry I haven't done that yet, but we were very generous. We have a very generous community when it came to this issue, and people stepped up, and I'm really proud of our community doing the work that we did do, and with the understanding we did, and we learned a lot. Homeless people, each person has a different story. It's really easy to paint. Oh, he's homeless. Well, the stories. There are people that that's what they like to do. But there are people that have been affected by circumstances that put them out, and they are trying to get back in. So that was good. I actually, the mayor and I toured the Florista, where Edgewood Furniture was. Now that we have a dispensary there, I can never remember the name of it. But it was, I want the public, I hope the public feels secure enough to go in and find out what's going on there. Because I have to say that the bar has been raised as far as the dispensary. I think there's a it's something that it's not what the community, or the fear was that we were going to have pot shops. We don't have a pot shop. And we're not going to allow that, or that's the general consensus, is that we're not going to have pot shops. But please feel free to go in and check it out. The other thing is there will be court tomorrow regarding the Wawa lawsuit against the city regarding the secret report, and also I think there'll be some other information on the other issues. That's at 9 o'clock tomorrow in Wairika, the courthouse. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. For the sake of time, what I'll do is just keep it short. I just wanted to let the public know that our senior programming through our 0.25% sales tax has been gathering steam. We started off with 25 people attending. We're up to about 40 attending on a regular basis. we've started providing at least some extra activities such as bingo, and we are also having exercise classes for some of the seniors, which is, again, getting about 20 people up and moving a bit. And I'm thrilled about it in some respects. I know it's not as exciting in some respects as to cannabis and some of our loved gas stations, I guess, but it is part of successful senior living around our neighborhood, so I hold that near and dear as I get older.
Mr. Mayor, I did have something I forgot about. I toured the new community center. And the night before I knew I was going, I kind of had a little bit of a nightmare thinking that the pool was only going to fit 3 people. But it's looking very nice. A nice big area for 150 people that could gather, an area where 50 people can gather, a huge kitchen. The 2 people that were on the tour with me that were chefs were quite pleased with the size of the kitchen. The pool looks great. It will fit more than 3 people. For aerobics, water aerobics, and that other kind of physical therapy type things. And so they said August, September.
So we're moving up?
Yeah.
That's good.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add to that. There's also, Shasta Regional has offered, you explain that.
$100,000.
Go ahead, explain.
Shasta Regional has offered a $100,000 match, but they would like us to raise that $100,000. So they're asking the community of Weed to donate what they can to Shasta Regional so that we can get the, if we raise $100,000, they'll match us $100,000 to go towards the building.
Are we shy on the end all on construction or close?
We're close.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close.
Close. But 200,000 wouldn't hurt.
Is that the information? Thank you, Holly.
There's information in the back?
Yeah, that's what.
So there's
Oh, and at the
information-
chamber office is available also. And I saw some today at the resource center.
Well, Mr. Mayor, why I mentioned that, just service groups and faith-based groups hope they could get the message that there's a match, so whatever is donated. So it's something we really should take advantage as a community.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to the regular agenda. Item A, approval of engineering agreements with Pace Engineering. I guess we'll get a staff report, and I believe Pace Engineering is here as well.
You want to deal with this, Paul? No, you do it.
Good evening, council members. Paul Reuter with Pace Engineering. What you have in front of you tonight is an agreement to proceed with engineering services for 2 planning grants that the city obtained through the Proposition 1 funding program. The one project is the Waterline Bypass project that's been in planning for several years. We've actually completed design of it and submitted a grant application for construction. And so we're actually waiting for a construction agreement now that you've gotten your planning agreement. So how it works is the planning agreement covers the design and environmental and planning, and then you have to apply for a separate grant to actually do the construction. So actually completed most of the planning. So we're waiting for a construction agreement to do that project. The second project is the North Weed Water Supply Evaluation Project. And that project is something that is a good idea for the city to pursue no matter what happens with the spring water. And so one of the things that we'll be doing, actually we've actually started as well, is drilling a test well to kind of find some other water sources if something were to happen to the spring supply. So there's environmental component to it, and a number of things. I think we attached to the agreement the scope of work. It's fairly detailed for both grants. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has pertaining to those projects.
So we've drilled the well. Am I correct in that?
Yes, we drilled a test well, and of course, it's a nightmare getting a discharge permit through the regional board, and they delayed us several months. But we've got that in hand now, and so the well driller will be on site next week to basically finish the testing of it. And so by the end of the month, we should have some preliminary results on well yield and water quality and so on. So
that's important for us, just in case other things don't work out. All right. And the other part of this is the construction of the bypass. That's it?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Just, mine goes to money, of course, I always go there.
Speak.
Can you hear me? Everyone hear me okay? I know how to project. Just the dollar amount. So the total dollar amount has been secured by grants.
yes,
So the city is not responsible for anything. We just have to administer.
that's right.
When I look at 1,042,000, I get really nervous.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, I want to make sure, because we talk about grants and before we're applying and as we're applying, but they were received by us and we are not putting out a penny for this.
That's correct.
Okay, that's my only question.
And that was also my question, but I knew that you would ask that, so I let you.
This is actually, we've already approved this. It just came back because of, I think, some corrections that we had to make.
Well, I think what's really happening, Mr. Mayor, is the city's actually received the formal grant agreements from the state
Okay.
just in the last month or two. So, you know, the wheels of the state spin kind of slowly, and the city wasn't in a position to wait to do some of these things. So really tonight is kind of formalizing a lot of the work that's already been done, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We had a question, Paul, just because I'm blue collar all the way, and you said, you know, how these things work. We got a $500,000 grant. That was for the study.
Right.
Okay, now that's, I mean, 500,000 even. That's, the grant was there, so we went and got the grant, and then we assigned that you chose to take that on for the 500,000.
Yeah, we kind of did back our way into the planning grants because the 500,000 is the maximum amount you can get. And so that isn't always adequate to cover all the planning required for a project. So we try to get you the most we can under planning and then determine, okay, what can we do for that? Obviously, we have to complete the environmental, we have to complete preliminary engineering, but you can't always get all the design done. So we'll say, well, we can do 80% or 90% or 60% or whatever the case may be within that 500,000. So, yeah, we have to kind of back our way into it. We want to get as much as we can for the maximum grant available, basically.
And if there's anything left over?
If there's anything left over, then it can apply to the construction side.
Okay.
So how the Prop 1 works is that for a water project, you can get up to a $5 million per project grant. And so whatever you don't spend in planning rolls over into construction, and you can use that for construction. So with all of the planning grants that we've worked on for the city, we want to maximize that for obvious reasons. There's a lot more infrastructure work to do in the city than $5 million per project. So we want to get as much as we can and do as much as we can.
And as far as now, you'll have the inspectors. Are you inspecting this as the work is going, and you're the one that's okay signing off, saying this is up to the standard?
Yes, once we get to construction, we would handle that part of it, do the construction management part, and so on. Just like most of your public works projects have occurred in the past several years.
If we had any issues after that, you let's say that if something wasn't done properly, do you do that as far as trying to recoup or get that repaired for us? with the contractor? Or?
Yeah, with typical public works contracts in California, there's bonds that contractors need to carry, and those usually have to be active for a year after construction. So if there's a major defect in the construction that, for whatever reason, we didn't catch, then the contractor can either fix it, or the city can exercise his bond rights and go to his bonding company, and they will hire a contractor to fix it. So those are standard provisions in public works contracts that would be in these contracts as well.
Did the grant, who wrote the grant? Did we write the grant, or did you write the grant?
My staff and I did.
Okay, good, thanks. I was just trying to figure out how it all happens.
Yeah,
Thank you.
with a lot of help from city staff too.
Everybody satisfied?
No, sir, no other questions?
I need somebody to move for the approve the agreements. I can do it if you guys want me to.
I make a motion that we approve engineering agreement with Pace Engineering.
Second it?
I would actually make sure we include the North Weed Water Supply feasibility study and the bypass water supply pipeline.
You demand.
Is it two separate agreements?
It's one agreement.
Okay, same.
When we're gonna approve, it's just an improvement,
Okay.
approving the whole agreement.
Which is those two items?
Yes, those two items. I get a second?
I seconded it.
Did you? Okay,
Yes, sir.
all in favor?
Aye?
Aye. On to item B. A request by applicant Elevate, I think it's it's Shasta, for reconsideration of city's rejection of application for alternative medical cannabis clinic and council's denial of appeal thereon. Applicant will make a presentation asking the council to reconsider the rejection of application. I thought we did the appeal process already, and we're gonna read.
Mayor, this is a request for reconsideration of the council's decision at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add, as a part of the introduction, we received a list of questions regarding this company, right?
Yes.
And I haven't had the chance to look through those. I don't feel prepared. We just got them today. I'm not sure when it came through.
Applicants are ready to prepare, they're ready to present a verbal explanation of what you have in front of you. We expected to get a brief or a letter or memorandum of some sort from their attorney, but they decided not to do that. So all we have in writing is the questions and answers. They're not argumentative, they're just questions and they're just answers.
But
I
it's
think
their questions and their answers.
And their answers, yeah, their questions and their answers, good point. But they will provide the explanation and the argument, if you will, if you decide to proceed with this, you can do that.
And if we proceed with this, that would be to set it up on another agenda?
It's already on the agenda for closed session if you decide to discuss it with me. What I would ask is that the council allow the presentation, ask any questions you might have, but not discuss it or deliberate in open session. We'll talk about it in closed session after the meeting, and if the council is so inclined, we'll place it on a future agenda for action, if any is to be taken.
Okay. Ali and Jennifer, are you here? I see you in the back.
Ali Tagavi, 51 Main Street.
Jennifer Merritt, 51 Main Street. When the gentleman got up and started speaking about Groundhog's Day, I thought he was referring to us, but apparently not. I guess we're confused because we met, we thought we were meeting in January in a meeting to discuss some sort of resolution. And at that meeting, we were told to come here to discuss the resolution. And now you're telling us it's going to be discussed at a future agenda. So I'm not quite sure why we're here tonight. The reason why we were questioning all the proceedings up to this point was really had to do with which ordinance was used to review the applications, whether applicants had access to such ordinance, and whether the application asked for the things that we were denied over, whether we were notified in a proper manner. So all these questions that we wrote, these 21 questions, just went down the list of all of the things that were in question as to which ordinance. For instance, the first question is, was ordinance 439-2017 the correct ordinance to use in reviewing the applications? No, the application itself states, and all applicants signed with a signature to follow ordinance 436-2017. So that's the first question. The application itself states that we're all going to follow 436, and yet the ordinance that was used against us in our denial 6 weeks after we handed in our 6 or 7 weeks after we handed in our application was 439. And at that point, honestly, I had never seen 439. I went back and tried to look at the meetings. The meeting where you discussed 439 was not on your website until January, just this past January. So August of this past year, you discussed making changes to ordinance 436. That meeting was never posted. So applicants had no access to that. The week that the applications were posted online, the application that was on your website was 436-2017. The application itself said 436-2017. One of the applicants got up at the meeting, at the September meeting, when the application had already been posted, and informed the city council that the 439 application, or 439-2017, was not posted on the city website, yet the application was. Okay, the person that received the permit got up and told you guys that 439-2017 was not on your website the week that the application was posted. So applicants went to the website, they pulled up the application. It says followed 436-2017. They look at your website. The website says the corrected version of the ordinance is 436-2017, and you click. The ordinance that's posted on your website the week of the applications is 436-2017 at every spot. No place is 439-2017 posted. The only people that would have access to that information would be people who attended the ad hoc meetings, attended the meeting on August 10th. That's it. Those are the only people that would have heard of those changes. And even people that were at that meeting, including council members, were not clear.
One question. What question are you on?
We're on number 1, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm still explaining how the wrong ordinance was used against us and how the correct ordinance was 436-2017, and that we were disqualified using 439-2017, which was not a valid ordinance until November 11th, 2 months after we handed in our application. We were issued our first denial letter November 2nd. That is the first we ever were requested for any cannabis medical management experience, was on November 2nd when we received our first denial letter from the city. We handed in our application September 18th. Up until that point, the city manager was communicating with us as if we were moving forward to stage 2. He told us as long as we had everything he requested in by October 13th, we were good. We did. We sent email communication stating we had handed in everything and to let us know if there were any more questions. We heard nothing until we were denied November 2nd. We didn't hear about the October 27th meeting that was called to discuss our application and to deny it. We never heard about that. We never received an email. We were never notified. We were told we were not, it was not your responsibility to notify us, even though that October 27th meeting was a special meeting called to discuss our application, which was first in line. It seems to me as first applicants, we should have been notified of the October 27th special meeting. But no, we weren't. So that meeting was held. In that meeting, they're like, where are they? Why aren't they here? Because we thought we were moving to stage 2. We had no idea 439 even existed. So we would not know that that ordinance was going to be used against us, or that we were going to be expected to supply management cannabis dispensary experience. And at the same time, we're being represented as having zero cannabis medical dispensary experience to all of you, even though we own a dispensary in Mount Shasta and said so in the application. And you kept saying we missed a checked box. The application itself says, do you own a cannabis dispensary? And we said yes. And then we gave our license number. And we were being disqualified because we did not prove that we had cannabis medical dispensary experience. And we didn't include it in the application. We included our resumes that said we owned a dispensary. We include our business licenses from Mount Shasta. We included our corporate papers. We included everything. As soon as we were asked for a manager that had a year's experience, we handed it in by the deadline. We handed it in literally the next day. He told us what he wanted November 6th, November 7th, we handed it in. So everything that we were asked for, we gave the city. We had no access to the ordinance that you were using against us. I checked, I went back, I looked at everything, I watched every meeting, I saw exactly what happened. These permits were already given out, at least one of them, before we even all applied. There was already a decision made, so it didn't matter who was first in line.
There were no permits
well,
given out.
that's just
prior
number
to-
one. Let's go number two.
Do you want to address that first?
Well, yeah, there were no permits given out prior to that whole standing in line thing. When did you open in Mount Shasta?
We opened this summer. But it doesn't matter because 436 does not state anything about having cannabis medical dispensary experience. It doesn't say anything about that, and the application doesn't ask us to provide any. And the whole point is in our denial on the second, you used 439 to deny us. But
I got that part.
Yeah,
I got
so
that
why
part.
does it
So
matter
that's-
when we opened? Why does it matter?
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Bob, how much discussion should we have? Should we just listen primarily and then go to closed
What I'd
session?
suggest is that you ask any questions you might have.
For clarity.
But not argue amongst yourselves, not deliberate in that normal way that we always do. Save that for closed session, and we'll talk about it with council, with me.
So if I ask a question about when the ordinance was approved, would that be proper, or would that be better off in closed session?
Ask any questions of staff or the applicants at this time if you wish.
Okay.
And I remember the whole, no, I'm talking to him, so he can hear me. I remember
people out there
the,
can.
the 439 and the 36.
Remember that.
But I don't remember exactly what happened with that,
Four-
which is what we'll
436
discuss.
was introduced. 436 was never approved. Am I correct in that?
That's
not that correct?
It was publicly posted.
I'm talking, if you don't mind, I'll talk to him and then I'll go back to you.
436 has never been a valid ordinance in the city because it was
Never.
replaced essentially by 439 before it
Okay.
went into effect.
Okay.
Mayor, let me have a question too. And I believe there was some type of ordinance difference, and I remember I asked the chief to put the correct number on the system. Do you remember that date, time frame? What was that date? So that's the only difference I know about the numbers. I'm not sure how that coincides with you, but I know.
That'd be October 23rd, is that what
Was,
you said?
was that September meeting? I don't remember, but I remember I asked him to update it. He updated and sent an email back saying that it was updated on the system. So I know that part of the ordinance. We had a different number on the page. I don't know what date that was,
Okay.
but he corrected it. Am I correct, chief? You were acting city manager? I believe city manager.
Okay.
That's all I remember of a difference. I'm sorry, I can't be specific. I'm not sure the date.
Okay, so number 2.
Number two. Was the ordinance 439 valid at the time of application that were submitted on September 18th?
That goes with the same question.
Right, we're asking you guys to answer this,
No,
actually.
you're not here to ask us questions. We're here to ask you questions. Go ahead and make your presentation, and we'll ask questions if we need to.
We'll ask questions if
did.
we need for clarity. We're listening, so.
Okay, well, I'll
What
go
the-
over the,
okay,
I'll
let's
go
just
over the
go-
calendar
Let's
here.
go read the whole thing. Wow.
All right. May 11th, first reading of 436-217. June 15th, second reading of 436-2017. June 29th, published in the local paper ordinance 436-2017. Okay, August 10th, you introduced 439 at the meeting, but you did not post this meeting on your website until January of 2018. So no one that was not at that meeting personally would have seen that meeting where you discussed the changes. Applications are released on September 18th. At that point, there has not been a second reading of 439-2017, so it is not valid when the applications were handed in.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question? You have in your own notes that September 14th was the second reading, so it was read.
But it's only valid 30 days after the second reading, and you did not post it on your website, did not publicly post it. You did not post it anywhere where the applicants would have any access to the thing. And I know you said you did, but I looked, and at that meeting, and I've looked since then, I looked several times for that thing on the website, even in December when we were going through all this litigation. If you look, it even says, up until a couple days ago, it says 436-20 is the corrected ordinance right above all the council meetings. Up until a few days ago, it was still listed as 436-2017 on your website as, quote, the corrected ordinance.
I can't speak to your email delivery, but we talked about it then, and there's a lot of electronic things that can come into place. So I don't know, but I know it was read, and you mentioned that meaning that you didn't get it and you would check emails. So I don't know if that's the case.
There was no electronic emailing of the ordinance to applicants. There was no posting on your website. There was no public posting in a newspaper. So I had no access to 439 when I handed in my application, and it was used against me, and that is my point.
I just wanted to clarify when you said it wasn't reading or something before the 18th, but your note says September 14th. It was a second reading in that meeting. I
understand that, but it was not read at that time, and it was not posted on your website. So I would not have no way of knowing what that ordinance even said unless I went to the meeting on August 10th and saw and sat there and heard you discuss what the changes were going to be to the ordinance. And even at that meeting, you guys, I don't believe it was all read out loud. So you never publicly posted it. You didn't read it out loud. So, and then it was told in the applications, we're all agreeing to 436-2017. What's listed on the website is 436-2017. For 7 weeks, I'm being told I'm moving forward by the city manager or being led to believe, and then all of a sudden I'm being disqualified on 439, which I've never seen, I never had access to, and I had never had any way to have access to it. So that's my point.
I appreciate your answer. I have different views of that situation, but thank you for your answer.
I don't
That's
know,
all.
that's the whole point.
That's all
Okay,
for me.
so you did not also publicly post it after your second reading of the, or second voting of the ordinance. So then you had to do a third on the 12th, October 12th, you had to do a third because you missed the public posting. And then the ordinance was actually not posted in the paper until October 27th. 6-7 weeks after we handed in our application, there was a public posting in the newspaper. And then November 2nd, we were denied. And then the ordinance was valid November 11th.
Excuse me, 1 second. Debbie, we posted in the paper, we did a second posting, I'm pretty sure that's correct. What was the reason for the second?
Because we did not publish in a timely manner after the September 14 meeting.
Okay.
We had to reread again in October 12th.
And then reposted, okay.
It was published right after.
But it was actually reposted, but it was just it was posted incorrectly then.
It was not published after the September 14th.
Oh, it was not published, okay.
Public publishing of the ordinance was October 27th.
I don't have any more more questions, I think we might
Okay.
have to handle it in a closed session, because I'm
Yeah, I
seeing a
believe
difference.
so.
I don't know how to do it the other way.
You want to keep going? I don't know, you got number 2 down? Is
No,
it
I
number
mean,
3?
there can be, you know, there's internet dates on when things were published. I mean, we can not go on people's memory and just go back and look. And we actually took screenshots of your website on December 24th, where the August 10th meeting's still not posted on December 24th, where you discussed the changes, and the corrected ordinance is listed as 436-2017, and that was Christmas Eve. So I have a screenshot of that, and we can also, I mean, I don't know what else I can say, honestly. I just feel like I want to say that we were painted in a really negative light in all of this. And that's the only reason why I came here tonight, because I feel like at this point, the city doesn't want to do business with us. They didn't want us here. They didn't read our application for whatever reason. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Don't feel bad, we didn't read anybody's application.
I thought.
No, I haven't seen any application.
Oh, I thought there was a committee.
That's a little bit of, you guys think quite a bit of things that I'm not real sure. I've never seen an application. I never even knew what anybody.
That was in our appeal, and they gave you our application in the appeal, so we just assumed that you looked at the
I had
copy of our.
not looked at it prior to anything.
Well-
If I saw it, that was the first day I did it.
Thank you for saying that, Susan Tavalera, because at our
Whatever, yeah.
At
You
our
just feel-
appeal, I recall you mentioning that if your son's or daughter's application was
right, right.
incomplete, you went over that point many, many times, referring that our application was not qualified and incomplete. So you referred as if you've seen it, you viewed it, and also let me just finish. We were portrayed or shared that the denial came from the city council and ad hoc committee. I believe you are the ad hoc committee,
That's
and you
not-
must have seen that.
Let's
That was
cor-
told to us by the city manager. I'm not making this up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we're just, I feel we're getting baited here into certain conversations. So what I will say is that you seem to put more personal, you feel like this is some kind of personal attack, and I think you're incorrect. So with that said,
This has cost us thousands of dollars and denied us and accused us and everything else. So for us to be just calm and, don't get upset, don't get angry by all these wrongdoing, using a wrong ordinance.
a quick question. You do say that you were asked for more information, is that correct?
They just wanted us to prove.
Were you asked for more information, is that correct?
No, I don't know what
Were,
question.
when,
We were not asked for anything additional that other applicants did not also have, which was our Secretary of State good standing, our life scan, and then something that was already in our application, which was that he was a massage therapist. He wanted additional proof of past experiences on that, but he included his license, his resume, and everything. So that's all we were asked for originally. That was it. We were not asked for additional information until November 2nd, when you used 439 to deny us and asked for a manager's thing, and we had 90 days to cure and complete our application, which we did overnight. We completed our application overnight, and we had 90 days if it was just a misunderstanding, according to the ordinance. So even on that point, we should have been
were
incomplete,
you,
not
so I'll
disqualified.
just stand by the same question. Were you requested for more, did we request more information from you?
The same things everyone else did not have. Did other people have good standings?
Th-
No. Did other
okay.
people?
I-
No,
I-
they
I
didn't.
can't
The life
ask it any
scans, No one
plainer,
did. Ron himself said no one had that complete. No one. No one had it complete because the city did not do the life scan stuff so we could complete it. We went to 2 different life scans in advance to do it. And then on the statement of good standing, a week is not long enough to get that back from the state, so we did not have that. And then the other thing they asked for was further proof of his massage therapy background, even though we gave him a resume and we gave him his license. That was it. That was it. We show you the letters. We did. We gave you the letter. And then we were asked for the medical dispensary experience November 2nd when you denied us. And then we gave it overnight. Literally overnight, we gave a manager's resume.
I think it's best if we close the
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay,
Because I
can I
don't,
get a motion to go to closed session, please?
I so moved.
not now. Not close
At the
session.
end of the meeting?
Go at the end?
On the agenda.
It's on the agenda at the end of the meeting? Okay. All right, so we're going to closed session at the end of the meeting, and we'll discuss this further, okay? Amongst council and attorney.
Because, and that's what I started to say, I think there's things that you think that we know that we don't. We did not review any of these applications. For the longest time, all the applicants were to me were numbers. I had no idea who anybody was.
How was it disqualified?
That's what we're gonna talk about afterwards, but that's what,
I
so.
would say we've discussed it
Yeah.
now.
I just feel like if our application was deemed disqualified because it was incomplete by an appeal board, that they should have looked at the application to know what part of it was incomplete and what they were voting on. That's the only question we have is why hadn't, before our appeal, people read our application if they were gonna vote whether or not our application was rightfully or wrongfully denied, and on which point it was rightfully, wrongfully denied, and on which ordinance. Because really, if you look at the applications, it says 436 right on the application.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
On to item E, Planning Commission possible appointment. I would, because of the,
Comment on it?
oh, does some public want to comment on? Are we interested in any public comment on this particular item? I mean, okay, come
on the
forward,
agenda.
we'll listen. Okay.
Elizabeth Tabor, Mount Shasta, Mott. I'm the new business owner, 242 Main Street. I apologize ahead of time for my extreme frustration and maybe my short tone this evening. This whole process, as we have discussed millions of times, has been one trying to get through it at the next. I have worked my tail end off and have spent a lot of money as well as anyone else that chose willingly to try and be a part of the city of Weed. I had first looked at the Florista building with Mark Juarez, and my better judgment was to walk away from that situation. I then looked at the same building that applicant's number one is in, which was their applicant, was this rock building right underneath the arches. And my better judgment for that building was not only was it too expensive, but the back property line of that building was within the 600-foot radius of Siskiyou Childcare, which is in the state law of not putting a business within 600 feet. I then spent money, rented a building across the street that was your old Napa building, paid rent on an empty building before I had put the application in, because we were gonna have to have a location that I then decided was gonna cost me more money to even bring that up to if I were to be granted a permit. I walked away from that and lost $3,000. And then I was blessed with the phone call from a realtor about the building I'm in now, and I got smart on that building and asked for a contingency agreement that if I were to get a permit in this city, could I then pay the fees to that owner upon the contingency. So I not only waited like everyone else on a hope, paid money out of my pocket knowing that I was pushing a slot machine gambling because it may or may not be worth it, and sat back through all these meetings. I recall the night of the 436, 439, I asked is this 36 or 39? And at that moment, it was that it was a typo, because I couldn't find 439 in my phone, but I could find 436. And the next day, I believe it was Martin that went back and looked to see if the correct number for what we were speaking of was 436.2017. So I, even myself, would have a clarification of what we were getting into, what the expectations were to be met, and what was going to transpire as we all sat back and waited patiently to see what was going to happen in the city of Weed. I have been accused of things, even tonight. They have driven in front of my business and taken pictures of my storefront, and has made me feel like I'm trying to operate a nice, beautiful, attractive business in your town under a hostile business environment, which is not okay. It's hindering us from moving forward and progressing and feeling comfortable in our own businesses because it's under constant attack by someone who's upset. And this is becoming offensive as to what grounds do I have when someone else is holding up a situation because they're unhappy that they didn't receive a permit that all 5 of us, including Shane Phillips, who was in 5, all had hopes, no matter what position we were in, that maybe something great was going to happen. And now those of us that got a permit, God forbid we didn't have some underlying something going on here. Now some of our council officials won't even have certain conversations or talk about things out of fear because someone thinks there's going to be some kind of favoritism or something. This is ridiculous, and I hope that the council can find a way to solve this soon because I'm getting tired of these people. Seriously. It's out of control, disrespectful, taking photographs out front of my business. I've had it. Please resolve this somehow.
Thank you.
I'll be quick, I promise. Patrick Riley, 241 Main Streets.
Patrick, are you one of those numbers? Do you have
I'm a number, yes.
What number are you?
I am.
4.
I was 3/4, maybe one of those two.
Okay,
right?
4.
Yes,
But
4.
now you're number 2.
Thank you.
4. I am number 2.
Or
Yes.
1.
Yes, that's right. Or I'm still 2, right?
1, maybe
Okay.
2.
Okay. Okay, so just really quickly, a few things they mentioned now at this recent event is that they could have simply cured their application with bringing on a new manager. There's a problem with that too, because if they had actually reapplied with a new manager, it would actually be a new application, which would have then moved them to the back of the line. So what they're trying to do is they knew they didn't have the year of experience, but they knew they also had the first in line because they slept out on the stairs. So what they've tried to do is just basically through intimidation and this kind of appeals, a second appeal for something that would have actually should have been denied before it even got to phase 1 because it was an incomplete application. What they are trying to do is hold on to that spot of we were number 1 without simply reapplying. If they had just added a manager of 1 year experience, they would have cured this whole problem, right? But if they had done that, they would have been moved to the back of the line. And so they didn't like that. They didn't like that possibility. And I think that's very telling. They're trying to keep the spot, and they turned in a rushed application that was defective. It was identified as defective pretty quickly. And it was not cured because the curing of it, of adding a manager of a year experience, would have bumped the application to number 5, past Shane. Secondly, just this whole idea of a writ of mandate or something else that they're going to try to do against the city. It's just so impossible. They would actually have to isolate a massive abuse of discretion by either the body or an individual. The body doesn't really know much about it, so it's not like a judge is going to compel you to, yes, you must give them permit number 3. It's not going to happen. This was their last attempt. I think the reason why council wasn't here is that it's a pretty pathetic last attempt, and hopefully it will be a last attempt, because they shouldn't have even had the first 2 appeal, or they shouldn't have even been able to appeal the first time. considering that their application was incomplete. It was not complete. And then, and lastly, for writ of mandate, I mean, normally it's like for Freedom of Information Act, if something doesn't get brought up or a body is just egregiously violating state law or its own ordinance, but it's very unlikely in this case that they would actually even file for that. So just something I wanted to say. I also think if you do, it sets up a very dangerous precedent, obviously. Okay, so I can just appeal and threaten litigation until I get my permit. That's a formula that other people could certainly adopt. And I'm very proud that you guys have actually you've dug your heels in on other cases where we have litigation in the city. And I think I think you're setting a good precedent in terms of they could simply just reapply. They could reapply right now, but they're not doing that. Instead, they're here accusing people of getting permits before the whole process even started. I mean, just bizarre. So my recommendation to them, if they were still here, but they just walk out every time, is reapply. Just reapply. And you can reapply, and maybe with resolution, the council can adapt a third one eventually. But this pattern of posturing, it's going to leave a lasting effect, I think, on their business or them as individuals. Lastly, if they were here, if they do try to file a case, and this is public record, there's a very likelihood that if their writ of mandate was filed and it froze either Elizabeth's business or mine, there's a very clear tortious interference claim that we could make against them. So they should probably know that. I wish their counsel was here because I'd have that conversation with him pretty easily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ship, North Davis, Weed. I just want to say we don't need a third dispensary. And we live in such a sue-happy society that either gets their way or a settlement or they're going to sue. And so I hope you guys stand strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Candy Crenshaw, 571 California. Everybody pretty much know me. I just have 2 cents. I wish I'd brought 2 pennies up here. And I won't make fun of any millenniums in the room or that has left the room, but last I checked, just like I applied for a job, it's an application. It doesn't guarantee an approval. And has the definition of applicant changed at all, though?
We don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. I just had a statement. I just wanted to say something there. Say hi.
Thank you, Candy.
No, good on you. Not quite as light as Jimmy got it. We got to give him credit on that. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Raymond Strack. I live at 3038 Nighthawk Lane. I would just also like to speak to the pattern of posturing as well as the, attempt to get you to move and basically, digging their heels in and kicking and screaming with the threat of litigation when in reality they have no ground to stand on to subtly attempt to accuse the council and those of us that were privileged enough to participate in the ad hoc committee and the democratic process that there was a decision made prior to those applications is abhorrent and quite frankly a personal insult to those of us that served on that board. And to be asked to be thrown a bone because you chose not to participate in the democratic process even though you knew those meetings were occurring is not how we do things in this country. So y'all did a great job and thank you so much.
Thanks, Ray. All loud applause. No, okay. Sorry, Daddy. Okay. Any more commentary? Okay, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much to Planning Commission possible appointments. I think for the sake of time, none of the applicants are here tonight, are they? I'd like to put this off until next meeting, or do we press for time because we have items coming on their agenda?
Well, you're not pressed for time. The term of office that you'd be filling terminated December 30th, so we're operating with December 31st, so we're operating with 4 members.
Okay.
Mr. Wood was appointed to serve out the remainder of a term. He was offered the opportunity to be reappointed for the full 4-year term. He elected not to do that. We went out and advertised. We've received 2 applications. If you choose to appoint, the section of the code is 228010, which says that planning commission members are appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. It's up to you. I guess you can run 2-3 months with a vacancy, but one of the problems comes up is when people are out of town. It's difficult to get. We have to get 3 members to have a quorum.
So let me ask, does the council want to discuss this?
Well, I just have a quick question. The information was saying that you would appoint either 1 or 2, but you want an odd
I'm
number.
only going to be appointing 1.
There's only 1 vacancy. I was in error. I was originally told there were 2, but we had filled John Oliver's position previously. And so there's just the 1 vacancy right now.
And just what were the candidates told about tonight? Are the 2 people that, were they told any decision would be made? Trying to, so we're truthful.
They weren't specific. If they were to be here, then I would probably say we need to do something, but neither one are here. We have actually 2 good applicants, so there's probably no need other than there was another one that expressed interest that I hadn't had a chance to contact. The person wanted a phone call first, and I failed to do that, so I felt that.
Oh, is that why you want to wait till next month?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just as long as we're fair to the 2 people that wrote, and as long as they're notified, we want to be clear about communication now.
And actually, we can just go ahead and we have 2 excellent people right here, so. My only concern was potentially a conflict, but I would say that Pam adequately addressed that, that item on that issue. And I would probably say that she's probably spot on. The fact of the conflict that Pam had, I don't know if you read the letter, but
I did.
Pam had pointed out that I do have Paul, who is my son, that sits on the planning commission. So I have to say that was pretty clever of me. But she's also a very talented woman. And then we have Mark, who is also a very dedicated person that's worked with the city for a long time. And he also currently sits on the recreation board. So there are 2 good applicants here. Actually, based on experience, I would probably hint towards Pam, but I don't, and even though we will probably get through the conflict, I'm not sure if staff would feel the same. That would concern me a little bit.
Yeah,
So-
that concerns me too. I know Pam, and yes, she is a
she's
strong opinionated woman. But I like that. But I think that there would be a conflict of interest too. So I would.
I don't even know if
say
there would be a
Mark.
conflict, but as we
But
can,
it's your choice, right?
as we can see, the public perceives things a little differently than,
Amen to that.
so. Any comment from you?
Mr. Mayor, I really, very sensitive, hard to discuss. But, I have to, I know that there will be people trying to connect the dots, even though the dots don't match. I don't, I definitely, I think Pam is a great asset, and she is part of our community now. She lives here. She wants to be part of this, but it is, it's sensitive. I mean, not only you have Paul, you know, which is the same thing, but it's not quite the same thing. We're on the council, we're city council, we're not the city manager. And Ron is in a very, very sensitive position. And I think that there are possibilities that he could be drug into in some place that he.
I wouldn't want him to
Yeah.
have to defend actions.
Yeah.
That would be my primary concern.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
So any opinion from you?
Well, you know, my experience in human resources, you don't want to have any type of perception out there. Perception can come from a lot of different avenues and different views, as well as our whole cannabis issue. I know what I talked about 4 years ago when I was appointed to fulfill a term for Mr. Jerry Broomfield. Same type of issues came up. And you just have to stand and do what's right. And I think, when I read the information and I thought, and I saw who was who, and knowing Mark Mazzoni, I went to school with him, being part of the town for so long, I think he has more evaluation, educational interests, or just living interests about the city of Weed. So that's the first thing I saw from a perspective of planning commission. So I just looked at what's like skills and abilities. What skills can you believe? Skills, knowledge, and abilities. What can you bring to the table? And that his desire came first. What was he also a community service officer? Yeah, so he had that side to it too. So I saw that as just some skills. Even though Ms. Stock presents some great skills for the county and for the area, she would know also. So it is a close wage, but I look at what's kind of the reasonable one. So my point would be on that side, if you were going to appoint. Again, the information I saw said we might do one or two, so that's why I was asking the two question.
Yeah, I thought we were.
So the council preference is on Mark? Is that what I'm getting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll have to forego my phone call, I suppose. The mayor requests that we approve Mark for the planning commission. Can I get a motion to approve Mark?
We don't have to, I believe, because
We
you
have
just
to, are we
appointed.
just making do I just make the appointment? I don't get all these, kingly duties all the time.
We didn't have to do it last time.
So there is one to take it.
I gavel it?
I actually don't know. Does the mayor make the appointment after the discussion, or does the council vote on it?
The mayor appoints, and the council then confirms, so the council would have to vote.
Let me appoint Mark, and I would like a count on who approves Mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
I do.
Yes, so be it. Okay. Next on the item of the list is to turn off the cell phone. No, just kidding. Resolution for cannabis tax, resolution number 02-21-2018. Council will consider calling a special municipal election for June 5th, 2018 to submit a general tax measure.
We had to, after the discussion at the last meeting, you suggested that June might be a better date. The council can put, if the voters approve, can put the tax into place at the earliest possible time, but you also have the right to delay the imposition of the tax because you have the ability to set it at 0 for a while. So the greatest flexibility is to put it before the voters on the primary election date of June 5th. We had to go back and modify the resolution because to have it on other than a general election date, we had to state that there was a fiscal emergency. And the language that we added was that we were fairly naive when we set the rate for the licenses. We didn't realize that we were going to spend as much staff time and as much council time on endless requests for appeals by applicants who did not succeed in getting a license. And we tried to set the rate at 10,000 being what we thought was a fair approximation of what the time was that we'd put in. We were off by a factor of 3 or 4 in that regard. And that gives us the ability, by reference in the resolution, to put it on the June 5th ballot. What you're voting on, if you approve the resolution, by the way, it will take all 4 of you to vote in favor of it, to put it on the June 5th resolution, June 5th ballot. It does not require 5, but it does require 4 positive votes. You're voting on the resolution to submit the ordinance to the voters. This is a little different than the way in which we're familiar. We're familiar with sales tax. In sales tax, the council adopts the ordinance, and the voters, by voting, determine the rate. And when you're doing that, then the council actually votes on the ordinance and has to vote twice. Here, the ordinance is attached as an exhibit to the resolution. You're not voting on it. You're not entering the ordinance on first reading. You're not approving it on second reading. You're only approving the resolution, so the resolution requires only the 1 vote. Voters will determine whether or not the ordinance is approved. If you look at the last page of the certification of the ordinance itself, you'll see that the ordinance may, if it's certified as adopted, it's certified as duly adopted by the voters with the vote being presented there. It's not the normal language that it had first reading and second reading. So it's actually a flip-flop of what we did with sales tax. Here, the voters will adopt the ordinance, and if they adopt the ordinance, the council will set the rate. Where in the other way, you adopted the ordinance and the voters set the rate. That's the difference, and that's the reason that you don't have to vote on the ordinance itself.
And so I have a question because of that, Mr. Mayor. Sure. And I'm thinking about it from a finance piece. So what if the voters say no for no tax measure to all the cannabis appropriate businesses, et cetera, et cetera? What happens then to the businesses that already have been established?
If the voters say no, you will not have a tax.
Period.
Period.
Wait a minute, isn't this just on grows, not on?
It's on everything.
All cannabis activity, right?
It's even on medical. Medical does not have sales tax because medical, like the pharmacy products that Owens sells, are tax exempt from sales tax. But this is a business license fee. It's the fee for having the business license to operate the business. And it's based on gross revenue. So this would be a medical cannabis dispensary, a recreational cannabis dispensary, a bakery, other manufacturing products, grow, all of them can have a tax under here. Now, you have the ability to say, we're going to do 0 in this class, and we're going to do 1% on this class, and 3% on a different one, but you have the ability to tax every cannabis-related business.
May I ask another question?
The ordinance is adopted
Do we
by
have
the
any
voters.
history on what has been successful in the other states or cities? Because a lot of people in town have asked me that. What research has been done with other people that have gone through this that have been successful? Colorado or any other states or cities? Do we have any history on that?
This ordinance or a similar ordinance to this has been adopted in a number of cities in California already. The firm that we use for our tax specialty has done it. I know that I talked about 4 different cities with him. I didn't ask him to give me a list of every city that has adopted, but it's pretty much canned language that at least most of the cities are adopting the same ordinance in California. Now, Colorado elected to do recreational, and so they elected to do sales tax. And in Colorado, there's a 7% sales tax, but 4% of it goes to the city. And the county can have a 1%, and the state has a 3%. Most counties in Colorado do not have the 1%. The tourist areas like Aspen and Vail, they tend to have 8% sales tax in those communities. And so they're taxing by sales tax. California is basically taxing on gross receipts.
My only question, last thing is just for, I'm just my general thinking. When a business comes into place, I think they should know A through Z what's happening when they come into place. And that's not happening per this issue and the ones that we had before. So my thinking is from anyone who comes to us, who's going to come to, we know they're all going to be coming, 50, 25, 100 folks with different businesses. They should know this, whatever's being applied to them as a business. And if they don't know, because the voters have to vote on it, I think that we're kind of going a little fast.
Well, I wouldn't mind answering for a second here. Number one, I believe this is just a step in a process. Step in the process that allows us to regulate the tax. We don't have to act on it until we are ready to act on it. So it sets the rate at 0. So a tax rate at 0 is just 0. We don't have to move on it until we actually see what other neighborhoods are doing. Shasta Lake City has a tax rate. The city of Vallejo, everywhere they're doing this, has some tax rates being established. I don't know how many are official yet, because they still needed to get voter approval on taxation.
Right.
So we're all kind of floating down the same river of not sure.
I just have that concern as a business. I would, if I'm opening something, I would want to know all taxes too.
Let's hear.
Maybe that's your question.
You have a question?
Are we ready to? I just like to make a point that I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that this is just a step in the process so a tax can be assigned, and we will. But I think it's really important for the business owners to understand that the last thing we want to do is for you to fail. And as far as being greedy, and if we're talking about the cultivation outside in the south end of town, we're looking at the possibility of we're looking at 200 employees. Okay, now so looking down the line, say if you had 200 employees, when you come to the council, we're talking about a whole different picture than we are right today. So what we have to do right now is establish that we can do that, but we want to make sure that it's kind of a trust situation here. The last thing we want to do is tax you out of business, because we want you to be successful. We've introduced this into our community, and it takes a little it takes confidence in one another. I don't think I don't think we can establish a tax tonight, a tax rate, and I don't think that's what we're being asked to do. It's just to do the
tax
process.
structure.
Yes. So,
Elizabeth, comment.
Hello.
Name and address, please. You used to love it, Tommy.
Elizabeth Tabor, 242 Main Street. How's that? I want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand Mr. Stock. He said that cannabis does not have a sales tax?
As I understood state laws, medical cannabis does not have a sales tax.
Okay, you're reading or someone's interpreting something way wrong.
Really?
I just paid my monthly tax, BOE tax, every month.
No, the state keeps changing the rules so often.
This
it's
has
hard to
been
keep up.
since 1996. Any cannabis dispensary that operates as a retail store that dispenses cannabis, whatever the local sales taxes of that jurisdiction is charged to your patients.
In December, I saw a document from the state.
Explain what that document was. After AUMA was voted in, it says a medical patient can be exempt from local sales tax if and when they apply through the county to the state to get a state medical card that's $150 a year. When they present that card at any dispensary, they are then exempt only from the local sales tax, but everybody, medical and recreational, pay 15 additional percent.
So the state only gave away our taxes. They didn't give away their taxes.
If that person, but here's
You gotta
the
love
thing.
California.
I've seen 2 of those in 3 years. 2 cards. One, these patients don't feel comfortable registering with the state of California because their name is in a registry. To them, their cannabis use is their personal privacy. That card at $150 is renewed every year and is also registered through the county in which they apply for that card. It is very rare for us to ever get one of those. Every patient in the last 3 years that has come through my door is charged 7.50% on every product in Mount Shasta. Since 2 weeks ago that we opened here, every patient that comes in is charged 22.50% of what they purchase. $7.50 here, $15 to the state. I just sent my quarterly tax. I pay monthly because it's so high. I just had to pay on $106,000 in 1 month to the state at 7.50% in Mount Shasta. And it's been that way since dispensaries have operated. If they haven't been paying their tax, then they're probably not in business, or the DEA has probably knocked on their door. So there is a misconception when you think that these people that are coming in are not being charged tax.
So
on that note, in Mount Shasta, we have the same tax issue coming up. As you said, you have the option to put 0 to whatnot. My understanding when they started talking about a tax rate in weed before I opened 2 weeks ago was that you were considering a cultivation tax.
Well, cultivation is in here. Whether or not the council decides to adopt a tax on any of the others is up to the council. This ordinance gives them that right. You have the right at the time that they're considering that to bring forward your argument as to why they probably should not. Now,
or maybe the argument of how much.
The mayor-
From my understanding is that a number of municipalities are already charging a significant percentage on top of the 7 plus the 15.
Well, where Harborside's located down there, they are taxing themselves almost out of the market because now it's becoming very publicly known that people are being charged well over 30+% to go in and get an item, and they're taxing the industry out of the market, and therefore, what is that doing? That's helping the black market thrive and increase because it's easier to go to their buddy or somewhere else than you're taxing it out of these patients' price range. And you're talking people that are on disability, SSI, and assistance.
Well, I
So
actually
I
had
would
attended
proceed
a
with it.
symposium on this, and they were also concerned about the percentage and about the percentage being so high
Exactly.
that it acts against itself, so.
And not, like again, I've said before, I wasn't a big person that voted for recreational. I did want to see 2 more years in our state. But now that it's here, it's something I've also had to deal with. But I can report to you that, at least anywhere from 6 to 12 people a day have been pulling off of I-5 to Main Street instead of South. And I have turned a lot of business away, including some of your local residents who thought, now it's here, I can just walk in. Ron also mentioned that maybe you can also consider something on rec and maybe something on medical. So if we were to maybe talk about opening it up for adult use, maybe that's something else we could decide in this whole tax thing. But we are turning a lot of people away every day.
And I
in
think
weed.
we will be considering probably a workshop, because we have to do everything open, to discuss this from cultivation probably to what you're looking at. But I mean, we just don't want to just fly off.
Oh, don't open the floodgates.
Everybody's a little bit,
Don't open the floodgates. I've been saying that for years. Don't open the
Okay.
floodgates.
so.
Liz, why is it 22% here and only 7% in Mount Shasta? Or is it-
No. That's
It's 22.
statewide.
So it's 22 plus 7 there.
7.50. So
There.
So it's
And here-
22.50. No, you are here too because the city here has an extra
1/4%.
1/4% on
okay.
yours. So it's the same here.
Oh, okay.
It's
okay.
the same here. So like if you go further south, some of theirs are what, 8, 9 local.
Oh,
So
right.
that would be
Shasta Lake
9
City was
plus
somewhere in
the
there, yeah.
15, right? So you have to add that to the
15
price.
plus the 7 point.
And not to get
Okay.
too detailed, this is what's kind of weird as a retailer transitioning into all this. The state automatically assumes that I do a 60% markup, which I
Oh,
don't, and I have not. But boy, it's so they assume I'm marking everything up 60%. So they are charging me 15% excise tax on what they assume I mark up, not on what I would pay wholesale. And they are collecting that up front in advance as I charge it to the side, and then 30 days later turn around and pay it back to them.
Mr. Mayor?
Do that over your head
Okay.
tonight.
Elizabeth, I'm not finished. Mr. Mayor, go ahead. Elizabeth, what do what we're doing here is educational, okay? We're flying by the seat of our pants. We all know that. At least I admit it. But what is the future of prescriptions? What is the advantage? Why would I want to keep a prescription if to pay $150 a year to keep my my prescription open, or what do you call it, a license?
Well, the $150 one is the one that's the state registry one. So
Yes.
that's a separate topic. So that's someone if they wanted to register with the state. Anyone can go in and get your regular doctor's recommendation, and then there's adult use.
But there's a cost for that too, usually.
Yes,
with-
there's a cost for that. All different. I've heard
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy prices on that. AUMA is usually the Adult Use Act. Is someone over 21 that can come in and they're only allowed minimal purchases. Like you can go in and buy a keg of beer, but you can't go in and just buy a pound of pot. I mean, it's extremely regulated. There's differences there. A medical patient, usually who's cancer and all these, their recommendation is structured from their doctor in a manner which they receive a little higher dosing, say on edibles or their capsules, even suppositories, are actually medicated with a certain dosing. A recreational person could not purchase that item. A medical person holding a medical card for certain individual medical situations can purchase those items. So they choose, and then no offense, but if, Jeff Sessions, I'd keep my medical card too. Side note. So things are to change. So for protection and everybody, they're keeping their medical cards. Medical patients that need truly medical cannabis are keeping their medical cards
So far.
so
Okay,
far.
and another thing I think that we're when we start talking about the taxes and things like that, what we're dealing with here too is our name. weed from weed. We don't know the value of it, but the community, we're representing the community, and that is part of what we're representing here, or to find out what it's worth. And I think that we may be looking at a different tax than other places, if it means that much. For a long time, people have told us, "Oh, were you missing the boat?" or whatever, in some terminology or another, they're telling us, what the possibilities for weed. But back to what we're doing tonight is just the only thing we're doing is establishing the process so that we can do this, and then we will be talking about the amounts as it comes down. I do have one question on the amount that we're putting in as far as the square footage thing, why we're starting at 10, but that's another.
I can say it was funny that it's just a little side note, break up the monotony in here. So some of the adult use persons didn't realize we're medical only in weed. So they've come in, and now what I used to hear in Mount Shasta is what? Now there's legal weed and I can't get any weed? As I look at the man, and it was the drummer for the rock band Molly Hatchet, if any of us in that era remember that. And here he came off of I-5, a rock star, and couldn't get legal weed and weed. So I felt really bad I had to turn him away. But the name's got value.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. We're going to hold everybody to like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
No,
Fine.
I'm just 3 minutes, though.
That's fine.
I'm not kidding.
So just to clarify, the state tax is actually 6, and then on top of that, on cannabis is 15. So we're talking about 21%. And Harbor Bay obviously does pay a lot more because they're in San Jose. I'm familiar with the area, but Harbor Bay also makes $20 million annually. So I don't think anyone should shed any tears for Harbor Bay. Harborside, right? Harborside. No, it's in San Jose. Yeah. Anyway, also to give you some facts on taxes, 10 counties have actually already initiated them, and then over 50 cities have already initiated it last year in 2017. Some were even they had thought about it in 2016 as it was actually being legally passed statewide. So some of the measures you see, Measure A has some passes in 2016. You should absolutely tax us. I don't think there's any dispute actually on that. I mean, it buys civility and it buys the services that will protect us, as it was just demonstrated that costs are going to be there will be costs that will need to be paid to the staff. So I don't think any of my colleagues either are saying that you shouldn't take this to the ballot. I mean, it absolutely should be taken to the ballot, especially if there are emergency reasons. So that's pretty much it. Just the numbers are all right there. Pretty much every city that has thought about this ahead has also gone between a huge range between those. I think Bob's right. Your name is worth something. If you were to do a kind of a contingent valuation on how many T-shirts are sold or other things, or how many people are, every time I drive off the exit, it seems like someone's trying to take some dangerous selfie with the sign in the back. There's definitely some value there that you guys get to decide on later. One thing I have noticed in most of the cities is that it is taxed slightly differently with medical to rec. Rec would be more of the tourism, whereas medical will likely be the locals. So it's kind of a nice little.
And just so the council knows, that is in here.
Yep.
There is our ability to vary from product to product.
The last thing I would say too on we using the term prescription sometimes tonight, and that's a really dangerous term. Doctors are actually not allowed to prescribe cannabis. It's federally illegal, right? So that's why it comes as a recommendation. It's a very clever use of the word. It holds almost no federal. Or actually, it holds zero, federal authority whatsoever. It's really just something that a doctor can make a recommendation for. And so that's going to Bob's question about the difference between the two. Some people will still keep them, mostly because they're still being helped by their doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Getting past my bedtime.
I'll keep it brief. And my name is Raymond Strack. I live at 3038 Nighthawk Lane. Just to go back over the some of the issues brought up here, just to specify what Elizabeth was alluding to in terms of the milligram, like the serving unit. You know, recreational is capped at 10 milligrams per serving. A medical patient can still get up to 1,000 plus for their medicinal needs, as is dictated by their physician, and that's what they need. You know, the traditional Rick Simpson oil cancer-killing dose is upwards of 2,000 milligrams of oil under your tongue per day of raw cannabis oil. As far as Bob's point, the town's name, as we move farther into the Appalachian Development project, for lack of a better word, there is an opportunity for the city to receive funds directly from that Appalachian Development as a partner in that development in conjunction with the Department of Ag and the industry in that area, the geographic region of origin, as we go further into that conversation, which I look very much forward to. In general, I find the general elections are more inclusive. So if we really want to make this to be a situation where the people of the town get a say in what we're doing, more people show up for general elections. But y'all are already aware of that. So that's definitely something to be discussed as far as special versus general. But I understand that the city has expended a whole bunch of funds, more than anticipated, in dealing with these initial applicants. And, thank you guys for doing that. Can't say anything more than that. Obviously, as I brought up legitimately, I would like to see the tax structure based upon net rather than gross, although the fact that you guys can shift it from as little as 0 to as much as 10 and differ it between the different permit categories does give you guys a lot of leeway. And I would definitely want the $10 to $25 per square foot issue to be revisited. That is a separate tax that is being put solely on cultivators. That does not cover manufacturing or distribution facilities. That is per square foot of canopy space for growth. And furthermore, in all of our ad hoc committee meetings, if you look at the communities who are trying to be, I hate to say the word cannabis friendly, but that are trying to not exclude it. So I know that HDL and Michael Colantuono, they have worked in a lot of jurisdictions that are actively trying to dissuade our industry by effectively, putting tax rates that are prohibitive and incur into our margins to a degree that we do not go to those places. Napa and Sonoma are two very good examples because the wine industry is so entrenched there. They created a tax structure that is not conducive to healthy business activity. So if you're looking at a project that has potentially several 100,000 square foot of cultivation space, and you're talking about $10 being the minimum, that 500,000 square foot, that's $5 million a year from one business. And that just seems to me to be an unfair tax burden on that business vis-a-vis what the city is looking at otherwise from the receipts tax as well as the potential from actual income through the Appalachian Development Project. So those are my points. I appreciate your time. Also, one last thing, that 60% markup, which the state is forcing down our throats on some level, that is being revisited and will ostensibly be lowered prior to July, which is the next state mandated review of the regulations as they stand now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions from council for staff? Any more?
Yes, I do. I guess. If we on the cultivation, or we have the square foot, we have $10 to $26 per square foot. Can we, do you see any danger in spreading that out like we did? We started from 0 to 10% on the other. Can we drop that down to make sure that we are not, if we're going to be making the decision on the amount? I think it may.
Can we make it $1?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do see 510060, the city council is authorized to adjust rates. To lower the rate, may establish exemptions, incentives, or other reductions and penalties.
That we can change it after, is
Yes.
what you're saying? Okay.
And
Thank
all
you.
of this says, do not exceed.
Right.
So without without a council's vote, we're stuck at the maximums. But we can go anything underneath we want.
Other councils vote, you don't have any tax at all.
Okay, right. So we're the ones that are gonna set this.
Okay, so
and if-
we're not setting any.
We're not setting any minimum.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope that
fact,
answered
even
your
if the
question.
voters-
It says 0 to 10.
Even if the voters approve it, there isn't a tax until you act.
Okay.
Thanks. So do we need a?
I have one more question, sorry. Where are we allowed to spend this tax?
These dollars go to the general fund.
Go where?
To the general fund.
Okay.
There are no limitations on their use. 75% of our general fund money goes to fire and police. So that's probably where these revenues are gonna be spent, in public safety.
So we don't have to earmark anything if we have a pet peeve anywhere, just like Congress. Anyway,
May I ask,
If
I,
you,
just a statement on that. I know some community members, I'm just gonna tell you what they told me. They would like if it's taxed to go somewhere to help youth in schools. I just wanted to mention that, not saying we have to do that, but that was mentioned by some constituents. They hope that whatever we tax will go to help youth in some type of way.
If I may, that was actually in our ad hoc committees, we definitely discussed earmarking at least a portion of this for schools was our.
Yeah.
and I think the council, well, if it's in the general fund, the council can earmark it through budgeting, right?
yeah, if we earmark it in the ordinance, then
Okay.
you have to have 66.1, yeah, 2/3 vote. If you leave it as general fund, you need 50 plus 1.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it at general then.
So that's why we left it as general.
Okay, so it still comes to each council's purview as I age out. Anyway, that was my only question, so now I'm ready. Thank you. So I get a motion
it's a
for the
resolution?
resolution?
For reading only, for reading?
Yeah.
So I move that the reading in full of the body of ordinance number,
Of resolution.
Resolution number.
okay, it just says ordinance on the page.
One thing that we should ask you to do is the resolution under the question has a dollar amount that we're anticipating we're going to raise. We should fill that in.
Of how much money we think we're gonna raise?
We're a community of 3,000, so why don't we set it as a realistic goal of 50,000 a year from all sources?
I can't see us making that little, especially if we do recreational, but I mean, that's in cultivation. And the
You're
appellation and the.
You're not limited by it. You just have to give an estimate. Certainly, we're not going to raise anywhere close to that with 2 medical cannabis dispensaries because they're likely to be very low.
And this is just for the ballot itself?
It's just for the ballot. But we also have to express that it has some value to us.
It does have
since-
value, possibly more, but 50 would be a good start. I think if we put it too high, it would push the voter ballot one way or another, and too low would do the same thing.
And I don't want to create a situation where the voters think that we promised that we were going to raise a significant amount of money, because we're going to have to be cognizant of market. As that one seminar that you went to said, you don't want to drive sales back illegally because of the amount of taxes that you placed on it. And as Bob said, you want them to be successful. So we're likely to start low to see what is reasonable. And if we put too high a number, we may give the false impression to the community that this is a significant source of funding. I'm not anticipating that it is in the first few years. And it may be later when we do have commercial cultivation, and maybe those are large operations, and maybe we'll generate something like that with a large operation, but
So we fill it in with 50,000?
yeah.
Okay.
So you want me to add, as added, as amended?
As amended.
Before pointing that out.
So are we ready, council?
Yeah, did you get that one?
I did. So I
We're
move-
ready.
I move that the reading in full of the body of resolution number 02002-2018 be waived, said resolution being introduced and adopted by title only.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I can move adoption of resolution number 02-2018, resolution of the City Council of the City of Weed, California, calling a special municipal election for June 5th, 2018, to submit a general tax measure as amended by our discussion just now.
I get a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We had to have four. We got all four, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item is simply correcting the codification of ordinance number 432. It's the second reading.
So we just have to adopt it, right?
Right. You want to move the adoption of
I
ordinance
can.
number?
Any
Okay.
discussion?
I don't think so. This is just correcting the numbers that we voted on last time to correct, so.
Just ask about discussion, make sure. And I get the right number. 02 something. There we go. Okay, so I move adoption of resolution number, it says ordinance, but it's still resolution, same number?
No, it's.
It's ordinance.
Adoption of ordinance number.
Okay. 0444-2018, is that correct? The water well regulations, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Weed, correcting the codification numbers of ordinance 432-2016.
I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to item F, Homeless Coalition, discussion of table items from January 11th. I don't believe we've gotten any further information from Ed or any of the Homeless Coalition?
No, we put this on based on being tabled January 11th. The Homeless Coalition asked you if you would contribute $487 this year, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to approve that if that was something you wanted to do.
I think it's a valuable thing. But I would also caution that we are stepping up and helping the homeless. But let's not forget our regular citizens as well.
Mr. Mayor, with this $487 for, is just to get on to the program, the actual program that we're going to be following these people, these clients with. It's just, so we will be internet connected.
And the program is already established. We're just one county that has not been,
Counted.
yeah, has been joined in it. And so, and the county did this it seems $487, but each city is paying per,
Numbers.
yeah, population.
Per capita.
And
So,
it does give us the ability to pull down from grants if we find something, so.
yes.
I move that we approve the contribution,
I was just gonna say, I think it's a great thing for the amount of money you're putting in, for what you're getting access to in terms of grant writing. And, you know, I participated in the Homeless Coalition here with Bob. I bought 50 pairs of socks. I think we only gave away about 30 or some odd, but, you know, we did good. We went from 0 to 15, and that's something. And the fact that those people are there means something. I also would very much like to speak in favor of what Bob mentioned, that we as a community, even though it's not necessarily through the HUD Foundation project, we should do a more localized homeless count when we know that we have higher numbers, so that Chief Martin and the other public services have a better idea of the population base they're dealing with when that strain or drain on our resources is at its highest, not necessarily at its lowest like it was the January 22nd. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Ray. I move that we approve the contribution of $487 to the Shasta County Homeless Management Information System. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, just had to say that. On to item 7, consent agenda. Any counselors want to withdraw any items on the consent agenda? You sure?
Yep,
Nothing?
I'm good.
Good.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved. On to items removed and staff reports. I think we outlasted our staff almost. You guys, we're gonna get you recliners pretty soon.
Yeah, no.
We got heart.
I have nothing.
Okay, Martin, Debbie?
Oh, I have something always. First of all, the county is in the process of updating the hazard mitigation plan. City's hazard mitigation plan needs some significant work because of the fire in 2014. There is a meeting next week for kickoff on doing this. And I've encouraged Steve Duncan and Darren quickly to work with me to help in rewriting it. Darren's going to lead that process. And the three of us will be attending the meeting.
Is that for just our community or for county?
The county is doing it for the entire county, but there's a segment of the counties that deals only with the city of Weed, and the county has asked us to rewrite that section so that it's current.
Okay.
And that's what Darren and Steve are going to be assisting me in doing.
Okay, great.
Finally, in the lease agreement that the city has with Roseburg, there is a deadline coming up in March where if we advise Roseburg that we intend to develop the test well that we have drilled on their property, they have agreed to provide us with easements both for lines to connect the well to our system, as well as easements for the placing of equipment on their property to operate the well. We do not want to allow that time period to pass. You should expect that on your March agenda that there will be some sort of document. It may be a resolution advising them of our intent to develop that well, so that we toll that particular timeline in the lease. Now, even if we are the owners of the Bahan Springs, and even if we are successful in the litigation, we are the only city in the entire county that is actually growing and continuing to develop water resources in order to meet future needs is certainly worth going forward. Now, giving them notice that we intend to develop it does not mean that we're going to go develop it tomorrow, because we would have to complete CEQA. We have a grant for the purpose of doing that. We would also be applying to the state for funding to drill the well and to put the facilities in. If you remember, the last well we did was over by Pilot, and that well cost us $1.5 million. So we are not going to try to spend our local dollars for that well. We're going to continue to apply for grants with the idea that in a couple of years we will be successful in getting grant dollars, and then we'll go forward to develop the well. But we need to toll the time period under that lease agreement.
So if we're successful in Bond Springs, we still want to do it. If we're not successful on the Springs, we still want to do it.
Yes, we want to do it under any set of circumstances, actually.
Okay, but if we take another action which may require some CEQA study, or does it interfere with any other future plans besides
No.
dealing with the ownership of Bond Springs?
No, we have to do CEQA study before we have to complete CEQA analysis before we can actually drill the well.
Okay.
But we don't have to complete the CEQA analysis to give notice to Roseburg
Okay.
of our intent to move forward. And our intent to move forward on this does not preclude our moving forward on other items. If in the process of the study that you authorized this evening with Paul Reuter, that there would be another option that would be better, you always have the right
Take
to
that
switch to the other option.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm
I
not
know-
locking you in,
Okay,
but I'm trying to lock Roseburg in.
got you. I just needed clarification. You know what I was hinting at, I'm sure, so. Bob, got a lengthy report? Okay. I get a motion to adjourn into closed session.
I so move.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's my job.